tomorrow, episode 10, Bad Blood. Seems simple enough. It's your boy Icon, and another week of DC TV is upon us. So, Constantine wasn't in the last episode because he was going to talk to the dude in the painting to try to figure out, like the location to the Fountain of Imperium. So in this episode, it was very Constantine heavy because, since he wasn't in the last one, we get to see what he's doing in this one. He ends up talking to the guy in the painting. The guy in the painting, he has a map. The map is supposed to lead, whoever has it to the fountain. Constantine, but he needs the map. He needs to, look at the map, obviously, in order to find out the location of the fountain. So when he speaks to the guy in the painting, he ends up telling him, he was like, "Hey, John," he was like, "I gave the map to what is it, a bank broker?" No, like a banker. He said, "I gave it to a banker for safekeeping." So, Constantine calls the banker over to his house. When she knocks at the door, he opens the door. And then he's just like, "All right, love." He's like, "Let me see the merchandise." And then she's like, "Aren't you going to invite me into your house?" And then he's like, "Oh shit, you're a bloody vampire." So I was like, "Oh, I guess she works at a blood bank." So, so she comes in and then she has the map in hand. She gives him the map. But then she also gave him, because she said that the dude in the painting, not only did he give her the map to hold, but he also gave her like a potion. It was like a red potion in a little crystal bottle. And Constantine was like, what's in the jar, love?" And then she was just like, "Oh, don't worry." But she was like, "Once you take it," she was like, you'll be screaming for the stuff and you won't be able to get enough." So then when Constantine actually got a good look at it, he realized that what he had, it was basically like, it's basically magic steroids. If you drink it, it gives you a magical boost, but obviously it doesn't last very long. So, Constantine's whole thing, and I guess it also comes at a price too, but Constantine was just like, "Oh, you bastard." He was like, "Yo, you were juicing on the magic." But he still held on to it. It's not like he was just like, "Oh, I don't need this bullshit," and he threw it away. But he said he wasn't going to take it because there were consequences that come along with taking it. So he has the map now, but he needs to, but he still needs to find the location. And he can't read the map because the map was written in alien writing. So he goes back to the ship and he goes and runs up on Spooner. Spooner, she was at a point where she was tired of like being an alien translator, because remember they had that little pink baby alien from the last episode. The baby was going through growing pains, and Spooner, and like they kept asking Spooner like, "Oh, what's the baby saying?" And then she was just like, "I'm not doing that." And then there was the whole thing with Mick with the babies that are in the back of his neck, which was really gross. And then Gary had lost his glasses, and then she was translating for Gary. So then Spooner was just like, "Yo, I'm not doing this shit." And then and then she bounced. So then when she left, Constantine runs up on her, and then she's like, "What do you need me to translate?" And then he was just like, "I just need you to read the map for me." When she read the map, she was actually interested in what was going on as far as like the whole Fountain of Imperium. So her and Constantine together, they decided to go down to Spain, because when Constantine checked out the map after Spooner was able to translate, he found out that the fountain exists in Spain. So Spooner, she ended up going with him. They went down to Spain together, but they went to Spain in 1939. They go into a bar to try to like get some answers, because they said they have to find some person named El Gato, which is the cat. Like they go to the bar, they're talking to this dude. They ask the guy questions about the legend of the fountain and then about El Gato. And then he's just like, "Oh, in the next town," he's like, "In the next town over, amigo," he was like, "there is a goat or a donkey that has big, knockers or whatever." And then he was just like, "Oh, when you drink the juice from the donkey," he's like, "it gives you magical powers." 'Cause he's basically trying to get rid of him, because after he told that whole story, Constantine and Spooner were just like, "Yeah, so basically he's El Gato and the fountain's probably downstairs in the basement, right?" And she was like, "Yeah, pretty much." And I like the two of them together. I like Spooner and Constantine together because they're a no nonsense, like no bullshit, like tandem. It's not like one's the goofball and like one's the serious one. Like they're both about it. So I like the two of them together. So they go downstairs in the basement. They don't find the fountain, but they find a young boy. And the boy that they found, he was a mute. But Spooner was able to hear his thoughts, and Spooner was able to talk to him and communicate with him, because the boy actually had some sort of alien property like in his system. Nazi soldiers show up at the bar. They end up talking to El Gato because they're searching for the fountain as well. They end up shooting El Gato and they kill him. The boy runs upstairs because El Gato was his uncle. The boy runs upstairs. He goes to see his uncle. He sees his uncle shot and bleeding on the floor. He grabs his uncle's hand, and then he uses powers to bring his uncle back to life. So apparently, and then after that, like the soldiers, they basically was like, "Oh, the boy has magic." They snatched the boy up, and they basically told the boy, they're like, "Oh, tell us where the fountain is, or we'll kill you and your uncle and everybody else in the building." Constantine, he was downstairs the whole time, and then he was just like, "Shit, I gotta do something," because Spooner had ran upstairs to try to save the boy, and then she got captured. So Constantine comes back in the bar dressed up like a priest, and then he was just like, "Oh, like the Vatican is searching for the fountain as well," and then he was like, "Oh, maybe we can team up." So Constantine tells the soldiers, he's just like, "Oh, he's like, tapping into the powers of the Lord. He's like, I could basically translate from the mute boy through this virgin girl what exactly where the fountain is. So he pretends to do that because, like, Spooner she has telepathy where she can speak to aliens, so he just pretended that he could do that. So then Spooner ends up talking to the kid, and the kid told a story about how he got his power. He said that that he was with his uncle, and a bomb had went off, and it basically brutally injured his uncle to the point where he was gonna die. He said at that moment, like, a woman appeared to him, that looked like an angel. I guess she was an alien. She told the boy, she was like, hey, do you want to save your uncle? And then he was like, yes. And then the alien disappeared and told him to drink from the fountain. When he drank from the fountain gave him the ability to heal his uncle. And his uncle fought in the war, continued to fight in the war after that, and his uncle never died. I guess they called him El Gato because he had 9 lives, but what happened was every time his uncle died, like, his nephew kept bringing him back to life. The alien gave him the power. Well, I guess the alien itself had the power of, rejuvenation, and she just gave that power to the boy in the form of liquid. But what they said was, the fountain can only be, I guess, like the waters from the fountain, they can only be drunk by someone who's worthy. They end up fighting the soldiers, beating up the soldiers, and then Constantine and Spooner and the boy, they end up going off into the forest. And while they were in the forest, Constantine, he was being kind of obsessed. He was just like, oh, we got to get my power back, at any cost. And then Spooner kind of spoke to him at that point because she was just like, dude, she was like, you're being a little bit obsessive over the whole powers thing. And she was just like, you don't care what happens to the kid because, there are people chasing the kid. His uncle just got shot. And then he was just like, well, because they were in 1939. And then Constantine was like, well, that doesn't matter, love, because, these people are supposed to die anyway. And then Spooner was like, nah, we not doing that. She was just like, you're selfishly trying to find this magic, and it's going to cost people their lives. And she was just like, yo, I'm not really down for that. But then she told him, she was like, you need to convince me to finish helping you. And then he gave her the speech about how him having his magical powers, it gives him the ability to stick it to people that do horrible things to people. It gives him the power to teach the bullies, like a lesson. And then Spooner kind of felt bad. She was like, all right. She was like, I'll help you. There was one moment that I thought that was funny when Spooner was talking to the kid, and the soldiers had them at gunpoint. Spooner had said to the kid at one point, she was like, don't worry. She's like, I have a friend who's on the outside. He's going to come back any second now, and he's going to bring in a whole bunch of superheroes to come and save us. And then the boy was like, you mean just like the JSA? And I was like, that's right. They're in 1939, so the JSA would be around. So that was pretty funny. So then they end up finding the fountain. The fountain is actually empty. So Constantine's whole thing was, he was like, all right. He said that because he still knows spells and everything. He said, I need to transfer the power from the kid to me so I can bring the fountain back. So he used Spooner as an anchor to do that. So they removed his power. They removed the power from the boy. And, because the boy basically, he agreed to it as long as they helped him find his mom. So they removed the power from the boy, and the magical healing power, it was on its way to Constantine. Before it got to Constantine, it went to Constantine, and then it kind of paused for a second, and then the power went back into the fountain and disappeared. And then Constantine got upset because he realized he couldn't get the power of the fountain because he's not worthy, because he was being selfish throughout the entire episode. That deemed him unworthy of receiving the power. And I don't know what happened to the power. I guess the power disappeared. It didn't go back into the boy. But then the soldiers had found out where the fountain was, and they were coming in to kill everybody. Constantine told Spooner and the boy to hide. And then he goes in his pocket and he pulls out the elixir. The same elixir that the vampire gave him. He ends up, the magic booster, the magic juice, or if you want to call it. He ends up taking the power, and then it gives him temporary magic power, and he used the magic power to kill everybody. Spooner saw the whole thing, and then she was just like, yo, what's really good with that juice? And then he was like, don't worry, love. He's like, I'll never take it again. So they end up bringing the kid back to his uncle. Everybody's happy, and then Spooner and Constantine, they go back to his house. Constantine, at that point, he was just like, oh, we failed. Spooner, he was like, we didn't get our hands on the fountain. But she was just like, don't worry about it. She was like, we'll find a different way, whatever. She's like, you just can't give up hope. And then after that, Constantine still had the bottle in his hand, and there was a little bit of the juice that that was still left in the bottle. He took the juice, got got magic for a split second, and then he used the magic to put a memory erasing hypnosis spell on Spooner. And he told Spooner, he was like, you're gonna go upstairs, you're gonna go to sleep, and then tomorrow you're gonna go back to the Wave Rider and you're gonna tell everybody that you and I found the fountain, I drank from the fountain, and I got my magic power back. And then she was just like, yes, Constantine. And then she went upstairs. And then the guy in the painting was just like, oh, you took the magic potion booster, didn't you, Johnny? And then he was just like, yep, and that's not all I did. And then at that moment, the vampire woman came back in, and she had a whole briefcase full of the magic boosters. And she gave John Constantine, she basically gave him the magic drugs, like the magic steroids, a whole case full of magic steroids in exchange for the painting, because I guess the vampire had beef with the dude who was in the painting. So Constantine gave, the vampire the painting. She gave him the briefcase full of, full of steroids. And then she was just like, oh, I'll see you again when you need more boosters. And he was just like, that's right, love. And then, she left with the painting. And then now Constantine has a whole briefcase full of magical steroids that he's going to use. But they did say before, they said that taking that potion does come at a price. So I'll be interested to see what the price is, but Constantine is now basically taking magic drugs. So we'll see how that affects him, in the episodes going forward. From a Legends standpoint, the little pink baby ended up growing to a full-size adult, and the Legends had to deal with that, and that was pretty funny. They all got beat up by him. And then they actually ended up sending him somewhere. They opened a portal to get rid of the monster, on the ship. They opened a portal and sent him somewhere. And we don't know where they sent him, but if their whole thing is they're supposed to be retrieving aliens that are from different timelines, they're going to have to go back and get this thing at some point, because the point is to bring aliens in, not leave them out into the world. So I thought the choice to make that, I guess, was one of those things where we'll just get rid of him for now and we'll deal with it later. And, then Mick ended up, going through this whole thing where they looked at the eggs in his head, and they're supposed to hatch soon or whatever. So that's going to be very gross when that happens. So, so that was it. And thank you for tuning in. So leave your thoughts below, because like I said, this episode was basically all about Constantine and Spooner, which I thought was cool because I like to get more Spooner. I like Spooner as a character. But let me know where you think this whole thing's going to go with, with the magic boosters, with Constantine taking the magic booster. Do other members of the show take the magic boosters? Is Astra going to be the one that gives him the speech about, oh, you're cheating, John. You're supposed to learn magic the right way, not taking magic boosters. Somebody else on the team before the season's over is going to take one of the magical steroid boosters, and they're going to end up saving the day from whatever the big bad is, because we're at episode 10. And I still have no idea where this season's going. I don't know who the big bad is. I don't like the missions that they're doing so far. They're just basically random missions about just retrieving aliens. The only person who actually has a storyline in this whole thing so far is Constantine himself. And unless there's a serious side effect to him taking the magic drug, I don't see why him taking the magic drug is a big deal either. So they're not being very forthcoming with information, because usually like when you get to about episode 10, you can kind of see the direction that the season's gonna go in. But this one I still can't call, but I still enjoy watching Legends, so we'll keep going and we'll talk about it as it unfolds. So that was it, guys. You can check me out on Twitter. You can check me out on Instagram as always. Got more videos popping up like Superman and Lois, the season finale of The Flash. We got Titans coming up. We got other shows coming up. We got Young Justice coming up. I'm going to review Young Justice. When Young Justice season 4 reveals, we're going to do that as well. And I got, also check out my Loki review, because I got my Loki review on the channel as well for the 6 episode season of Loki. So thanks for tuning in, guys. So for Legends of Tomorrow, until next week when we find out what happens with all this magical steroid boosting, take care, and I'm out this bitch.